KPCA, LP, Petaluma, California.
Hey, Matt, welcome back.
Thanks, Jim. Greetings, listeners.
Yeah, hello, everybody. It's Friday.
And this is Two Mooks and a Mic.
That's Matt McGuire over there, back from the hinterland where he was wrestling bears, I think.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Something
and that's
like
Jim
that.
Thomas over there.
Hey, you guys.
And we are your co-hosts, Two Mooks,
Two Mooks
and a Mic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right.
How's everybody out there? Everybody survived
it's
onslaught?
Yeah, the onslaught of rain. It's nice to have a little bit of a break. I can't believe what that bright thing in the sky is.
Yeah, what's
everybody's
that thing
squinting
called?
and crashing into things, but that's good.
Get out there and mow your lawn. It's only about 8 feet high now.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
unmold everything.
That's right.
So we got a big show today.
That's right. It's going to be a little different. We have a special guest with us. We've got Kevin McDonnell,
Yeah, Kevin.
brand new,
Right.
freshly minted
Thanks for having
city
me.
councilman.
And last time we talked to him, he was just a candidate. So
That's right.
congratulations again. That's really pretty cool.
Thank
Boy,
you.
Look how different he looks.
He looks relaxed, well read.
Now he looks tired. Look at the bags under his eyes. So we're going to do a little quick rundown on the current events as is our wont,
Yeah, I'm going to be leaving early.
and then Jim's
Yeah.
going to bail on us.
Yeah,
He's got to go see the doc.
Yeah, I got
Nothing serious, folks. Don't worry.
We
Don't
hope
lay
not.
awake.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
It's remove another leg, I guess, maybe something like that. A knee replacement,
Yeah, something.
something like that.
All right.
All
So
right, what do we got?
Well, let's see. Let's talk about Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, let's talk
the
about her.
representative, the Muslim woman who
Stirred up a hornet's nest.
Yeah, she was talking about how the influence of the American-Israeli Political Action Committee and the money and the influence that they assert on our elected system.
Did she step in it, Matt?
I don't think she did. I think she was speaking truth to power, Jim.
Wow. Well, she certainly caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
And it's still going on because she's made several comments, first of all, about the Benjamins being
The
politicians.
$100 bills.
Right. Politicians are being paid for their alliance with Israel.
Well, and that was one comment, and people are accusing her of anti-Semitic comments.
Yes.
But basically, what she said about the Benjamins is actually true. AIPAC and a lot of wealthy Jewish contributors to different electeds do have an influence, as money in general does have an influence on our political process.
Absolutely. She says, well, I can't talk about things like the NRA in the same light as what's going on with the Jewish lobby. So,
Exactly.
So she's got some good points. She's
you know,
opening up dialogue.
You've got what turned typically are much more conservative Jewish supporters of Israel who are super sensitive, and anytime you criticize Israel or the government's activities, such as murdering Palestinians who are protesting their outdoor prison in Gaza,
Yeah.
They get super reactive and claim that you're anti-Semitic.
Right. So there's no line for them between criticizing what the Jews are doing and the Jewish state. And
Exactly.
she is actually separating the two.
Yeah.
And people are starting to realize that. People on the left, in the Democratic Party particularly, are saying no. And even some Jews are saying she is criticizing the actions of the Jews, especially Netanyahu's government,
Yes.
not the state itself.
Exactly.
And
Well,
that's
you've got
that's
the
an
Jewish
important
Voice for Peace, which is a
That-
Jewish
there you go.
organization that's very progressive, and they're saying, look, the truth of the matter is that AIPAC does have outward,
Untoward influence.
outsized influence,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and they can be really bullies when
Yeah.
you come out against something that Israel did. Now, check this out, Jim. The United Nations Human Rights Council just came out with a report, and they said Israel has likely committed war crimes
Whoa.
and crimes against humanity by
Yeah.
intentionally shooting and killing.
Jeez.
This is in Gaza at the
Yeah,
border
right.
protests.
Got it.
Unarmed children, journalists, disabled
Holy
activists,
cow.
etc. And they're using live ammo against crowds who are throwing rocks and maybe the occasional Molotov cocktail
And maybe
things
throwing the tear gas back to the soldiers.
yeah, which is never going to reach them. So,
Right.
And there's been many international declarations by the UN where the state of Israel has committed crimes against humanity.
Or
And this is a recent report.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't support Israel's right to exist.
Exactly.
That's a big difference.
And it's one thing to criticize, the violent actions, and you can certainly, do that and not say that, Israel shouldn't be there.
So, right, and the people who are throwing these stones, Matt, are the Republicans, and they're
The metaphorical stones.
That's right, the metaphorical stones. And so people are saying, well, look at Trump. How come you're not criticizing him?
Yeah. So what happened was that
Dave King.
The Democratic leadership was going to put up a resolution without naming Ilhan Omar, criticizing comments as being anti-Semitic.
Nudge, nudge,
well,
wink,
suddenly
wink.
A bunch of the Latino Congress people say, hey. And the Black
And
Caucus,
African American people,
and the Progressive
That's
Caucus,
right.
they all go into Nancy Pelosi. Well,
What about us?
you haven't condemned, Trump's, saying that Mexicans are rapists and murderers and
Right,
drug,
yeah.
and you haven't said Trump with all his race of blacks are too stupid
You
to vote.
can't just talk about this one group.
Exactly.
It's got to be broader.
So, the ultimate result was they passed a resolution in the House saying,
good.
we're against all hate speech, hate talk.
And Nancy Pelosi comes across as being a master of negotiation and working it through.
Yeah.
And it puts these people, the Republicans particularly, on record against supporting the acceptance of these people.
Yeah, and one of the people that didn't support this, really kind of milquetoast resolution was Steve King from Iowa.
I said Dave King earlier. I meant Steve King. Boy, that's a Freudian slip.
Dave King's our city councilman who was
just left. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, don't say that.
No, I won't. No, Dave King's a great guy.
And one of the interesting things is that Bernie Sanders, who is a Jew, was saying that he thought this initial effort was an attempt to stifle debate on the Israeli government's actions.
Wow.
So
How
there
about
you go.
that?
So I'm glad that it came out the way it did. It's kind of
Yeah.
silly that anybody attempted to shut Omar down in the first place.
Well,
'cause
Matt,
she was speaking truth.
She's being targeted. She's Muslim. She's one of the 3 Muslims in House of Representatives, and she's
Yeah.
outspoken. She's smart. She's a freshman, and everybody's saying that her britches are too big for her, and she needs to dial it back.
Isn't that what they say about Alexandria Omar?
Yes, AOC. They sure
Ocasio-Cortez?
do. They sure do. They can't stand this
The
woman.
old guard just really don't like to hear this.
The old
stuff.
white men, Matt. The old white men.
That's right.
That's right. It's the death throes.
Yeah, in fact, I was reading something about an attempt to change the Electoral College, and Eric Holder, who was the
Yes.
former Attorney General,
Yes.
is spearheading an effort, and the old reactionary governor of where was it? Upper East Coast.
Maine?
LePage.
LePage of Maine. Yeah,
He's
exactly.
going, well, this is going to take the voice away from white people.
Oh, my God.
Guess what, dude? There's other people in the country.
Eric Holder also, Matt, just came out saying that we should pack the Supreme Court.
We should, because
that's another thing.
it's being
Right.
packed now by
Yeah, but what's
right-wing
gonna happen?
zealots.
And then the next Republican will pack it even more, and eventually we'll have 153 Supreme Court justices. It's going to be insane.
Yeah. So let's see. And then Michael Cohen, continued testifying.
Oh, a
and,
colonoscopy.
yeah, Cohenoscopy.
That's right. Looking where the sun don't shine.
Bend over, Donald.
And crack a smile.
So that has triggered a subpoena of Trump's insurance broker.
Whoa.
Because of course
Whoa.
that's one of the places he lied. He said, he goes to the bank. Oh, my property's worth bazillions. Loan me more bazillions.
That's right.
Then he goes to the insurance company. Oh, it's not worth anything.
It's not worth anything.
Or he goes to the government for the tax purposes. It's not worth anything.
Right. Wow.
So, and
Isn't that called fraud?
That is fraud.
Didn't they get John Dillinger on that? Tax
Well,
evasion?
Isn't that what they just got Paul Manafort on?
Yeah, 47 months. That's
Yeah,
it. Slap on the wrist.
Slap on the wrist. He's got another sentencing coming
Yes.
up a little later in the
Virginia,
month.
I think, right?
I believe so. Or maybe this was
Maybe
Virginia,
DC.
and that is going to be D.C.
That could be it. Yeah.
But fraud and cheating the government out of millions and millions of
apparently
tax money.
Yeah, and apparently the justice or the judge who's going to be hearing this is not too keen on the slap on the wrist that he got for this other thing.
Yeah, his
sterling past.
His defense attorneys were, this is just routine tax evasion.
Yeah. And his prosecution attorney, when he came out, he did not thank the judge. He did not thank the jury. Basically, what he said was no collusion. So he's speaking
exactly.
for basically to an audience of one, that's Trump, to dangle a pardon in front of him. So That's what they're thinking.
But the Democrats are also queuing up to try to go after 10 years of Trump's tax returns.
Pass the popcorn, Matt.
Yeah,
this
isn't
is
that great?
so entertaining.
Well, real quick, Jim, Michael Bloomberg is not going to run for president. John Hickenlooper, the former Colorado governor, is, as is Jay Inslee, the current governor of Washington State.
Like Jay Inslee, like what he stands for, especially the climate change.
Yeah, that's good, but he's a fairly moderate guy.
Too moderate, perhaps?
And then who was it that just said they're not... Sherrod Brown.
That's right, Sherrod Brown, which is, I like him a lot.
Yeah, he would have been better than any of those three. But I'm glad that...
He'll get lost in the shuffle.
Glad that Bloomberg isn't, because he's got so much money that would like skew the
now
primaries.
Let's get the ex-CEO of Starbucks to drop out, the independent.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, Matt, before we go on, I just want to have a special announcement for people. If you are using Google Chrome...
Public service announcement.
As a web browser, it's under active attack last week, and it says you should update it immediately, like now, like right this minute. Here's how you do it. You launch Google Chrome's built-in update tool. Here's how you do that. You simply open the browser and select About Google Chrome, which you'll find in the Help section within its primary drop-down menu. Your browser should then automatically update for you if there's a more recent version to download. So that's Google Chrome that you might want to make sure you do that if you use Google Chrome.
Very good. Thank you for that PSA, James.
Okay, back to the meat. Thanks,
the blood and
Appreciate
guts.
that.
So it looks like there's likely going to be enough votes in the Senate to pass the House measure condemning Donald Trump's, fake emergency.
Thank you, Jesus.
on the southern border.
Right.
Not enough to overcome a veto, but once again, it's going to be good for people in the primary, because then it'll really help the Democrats by pointing out that. Who's sticking by Trump?
Right.
And
Whose
all
side
his
are
lies.
you on? That's right. Yeah. Let's jump off the crazy train.
And here's the good news. The House passed House Resolution 1. This won't go anywhere in the Senate because McDonnell and Trump will fight it. But this is a law that makes voter registration automatic. It ends gerrymandering by putting together, nonpartisan committees.
We like that.
It'll allow ex-convicts who've done their time to vote again. Election day would become a federal holiday.
Boy, that's so needed. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Isn't that a great idea?
Yeah.
And then there would be full financial disclosure in political spending.
Good.
There would be more
Shine
oversight
the light.
and enforcement on the rules, because right now we have plenty of good rules, but a lot of times they are not even, the
enforced or funded or anything like that.
The FPPC and people are just like neutered. It would stop the revolving door between electeds and the
K Street, which is the
K
basic
Street lobbies.
That's right. The lobby firms are on K Street in Washington,
so
D.C.
that they can't just go from the industry that they've been regulating to becoming the pimp for the industry in front of the government.
Pimp.
And then it would prevent representatives from serving on corporate boards while they're in office.
Man, this is like Christmas in March.
This is like,
incredible.
Hey, let's make conflict of interest illegal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good idea.
I called our representative, Jared Huffman, to support this, and the person on the other line said, Representative Huffman is one of the original sponsors of this bill. So I went, well, let's talk about the weather then.
And one of the last things that this would do, it would force presidential candidates to show their tax returns.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like all that. So, wow, good news.
Yeah, so
really
that was good. Let's see. A little bit of local good news.
One more thing before we jump off of that is that California is talking about going back to paper ballots.
Oh,
isn't that great?
Yeah.
So it can't be hacked.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds. I'm in favor of that.
I am too.
Yeah,
just got to remember to write your name by signing with an X, because most people don't know cursive anymore.
Can't I use a Y? Wait, what's the chromosome though? Which are we?
I think you have double X.
Double. Okay, I can see where we're slipping down that slope.
Yeah, slippery chromosome slope.
That's right.
All right.
So, hey, good news.
What's that?
Sonic, our local internet service provider, is going to be providing fiber optic access to the west side of Petaluma.
So that means for those people on the east side, hang tight. It's coming. That means we will be able to get 1 gigabyte of internet speed. That's extremely fast.
Yes.
For $40 a month.
Yeah, talk about competitive.
Really good.
Sonic is consistently rated the best internet service provider in the business for protecting users' rights and privacy.
That's true. And also, they're extremely nice. In fact, if you're feeling lonely, as you like Friday night, you don't have any place to go, call up Sonic. They're fabulous to talk to.
No, I don't think we want to encourage people to do that.
Not that I've ever done that, but that and used car dealers. They're fabulous.
You probably called them right after you called Jared Huffman's office.
Hey, not telling, man. It's a little too much information. information for people.
Yeah. And here's another little tidbit for
All
our
right.
listeners.
Let's hear it, too.
A new species of orca has been identified. Now, identified by scientists, marine scientists. So
They probably know each other. They identify each other. Ma loves Bob. A flipper.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so the species lives off of the southern coast of Chile.
Just hanging out.
And they don't live near the coast, so they're not seen a lot by. But the fishermen in the area have known about them, but because apparently they're very effective at stripping the fish off the fishermen's lines.
Yeah, the fishermen are like, what the F?
And this is one of the differences between known orca species and this one, because orcas are basically live off of other mammals like seals.
Yeah.
And so they think this is mainly a fish-eating
I like
species.
sashimi. Yeah, and so the scientists dropped a line with a GoPro camera on it, and all of a sudden the next day, all these new orcas were circling the camera, and they think our camera's a fish. So they're able to biopsy small bits of flesh so they can do genetic testing on these guys to see whether they're a new species or whether they're just an offshoot of some other species. But you can tell because they have a little white under their eyes.
Yeah, the white eye patch is very small compared to the other species.
And their fins are more angular, I think.
Yes, sloped and more streamlined, and they have a more bulbous forehead.
And they speak Spanish because they're off Chile.
All right, enough of that.
All right, yeah.
Let's. It's time to switch to our guest.
And time for me to go, I'm afraid, yeah.
Oh, James, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
All
All
right.
right, have a good show.
See you later, Jim.
Okay.
All right, well, Kevin, welcome to Two Mooks and a Mic.
Well, thanks for having me in today, man.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
Jim.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah.
Last time you were here, you were running for city council, and da-da,
Yeah,
now you're it.
It was very exciting then. It's very exciting now.
Good. So is it all that you expected?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the big themes in the campaign was the city's revenue is in trouble, and expenditures. And you get to your first meeting, and it's, oh my God, that's really, really true.
Hopefully, it's not radically worse than you feared.
Well, it's
bad enough.
It's as bad as you ever could have. So that's an exciting high topic, but. It is fun to have a new city manager on board, and she seems to have hit the ground running. Welcome, Peggy Flynn.
Yeah, she seems to have some pretty good credentials.
And big in the community, getting out to each of the commissions and committees that we have. You got to applaud that kind of connection with the community.
Yeah, good. Oh, yeah, welcome to her. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things we wanted to talk about today, Kevin, is the housing issue. I know that was a conversation we had when we interviewed you as a candidate, and one of the things that has developed since that time is this CASA compact, C-A-S-A. Now, it's an acronym for something that it doesn't quite spell out right. Can you explain that?
Yeah,
CASA, of course, being Spanish for house.
I think that's the bottom line. It stands for the Committee to House the Bay Area.
But
they abbreviated
CHBA,
it
right?
to CASA. It seemed CASA's got a lot more swing to it.
Yeah.
A lot sexier name.
Yeah.
For a really complex item.
Yeah.
And the basic premise is, we know we have a housing crisis. You look at the cover of the Chronicle this morning, you see the big crisis article, and we're not solving it locally. So others are stepping in. I mean, there is big government, and there's probably big government for a reason. They have more resources. They have can poll different communities to get best ideas from each.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on. We fail locally.
So it's not so much just big government as it is a consortium of local government and regional agencies. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I mean, there's all the alphabet soup of what happens, the MTC, the ABAG.
So MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission.
And the Association of Bay Area Governments.
Yeah.
And all of the other constituent elements that government rolls up to. Your city then has input to counties to state, but all the players got invited, all the elected organizations got invited to this process, as well as all the advocacy groups. So nonprofit housing groups are represented, tenant rights groups are represented, philanthropies are represented, and of course, big business, big home builders.
Investors, landlords.
So they try to get everybody to the table and say, hey, what's wrong? Why aren't we actually building housing and making it affordable? And B, what could we do to get it right?
So what's the outlines of the program then?
Well, they have 10 key points, and you can kind of hear the voice of each of the constituent groups get represented, like their point number
they
one.
each get their own point.
I think in a committee sense, it was a little bit. Each stakeholder wants a piece of steak. And so the first one they have there is a just cause eviction policy. Now, I think all the social do-goods got listed up front. The second one is a rent cap. So, they're addressing what tenants' rights concerns are. And then
have long cried out for.
Right. And further, they have actual rent assistance and legal aid as the third point. And those are all covered under tenant protection clause.
Okay.
Then they move into housing inclusion and capacity, where they talk more about removing regulatory barriers.
Okay.
And how things are slow as they get through. And then minimum zoning near transit. You're going to hear a lot of pushback on that because it takes away some local control. If you have good bus, good transit, hey, you need to put big housing there. And
you mean big numbers of housing units?
You need to get people where the transit is.
Yeah.
Before we go too far down this road of what this housing solution is, we have to remember that this came out of a climate concern. All those
concern
people
for global warming, climate,
and mainly the gas we burn in our cars getting to and fro work.
Yeah,
and
because transportation, I think, is something like 32% of the carbon pollution being produced today.
And it's the place we could gain the best if we were more effective.
If there were better designed planning for housing, so people don't have to drive so much.
When it's not affordable, you move further away and you commute.
That's right.
People left in your town then complain about traffic, and they think they're talking about traffic, but really what they're talking about is housing.
Exactly.
And so housing, traffic, climate change, they all come together at this same point. We need each of our advocacy groups, whatever your passion is, needs to know they're really supporting a common agenda.
Yeah, that's good. That's the underlying, reality.
So yeah, absolutely. That's and I think we get further if we have each other's backs.
Yeah, if we see the commonality instead of the smaller competitions between each other's interests.
It's not just one idea can win.
Yeah.
All the good can all win if we back each other.
Yeah. So. Of course, there's balance and sacrifice, and everybody's got to give up some stuff, right?
Right.
Because so like you're talking about, there's the project that is going in around the Corona station, that has not been built. It's not been finalized or approved, but those are single family housing units. And people are saying, well, if it's going to be a train station on the east side, shouldn't we have some apartments, some higher density condominiums, something like that, right? So that's
Matt, you're so kind to tee up a plug for Know Before You Grow. That's a local citizens group that held this forum that the Argus covered with really good.
And I was out of town, and I'm sorry I missed it. Can you recap that for us? Kevin, of course, is one of the constituent members of Know Before You Grow. He's been an organizer and a proponent of helping educate the public as to what the planning process is like before it's too late.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Well, the Know Before You Grow contacted the developer of that smart property up there where the train station will be at the intersection of Corona Road. There's a piece of
McDowell
at the corner of Corona and McDowell, and there's a piece of residential development there. So the developer came to this group, and we got 75 to 100 people show up, and real good turnout, real good education. And he makes his pitch for the proposed development, and it's single-family housing. It's pretty dense for single-family housing.
Okay, how many units per acre typically?
They're up at 22 units per acre.
Okay, so that is pretty high for single-family dwellings. Yeah.
Right. Any higher than that, you're moving into a multifamily types construction.
Okay.
And the question is right there at the train station. This is the feedback that came out loud and clear at that was people are saying it's right at the train station. It's not in a neighborhood. It needs to have a more dense environment. One of the points the developer made that was pretty interesting was his single-family housing at $600,000 per unit, his target price, would be the lowest single-family housing being sold. So it would be starter homes, and Petaluma's woefully short.
Yeah.
So it's sort of looking at right idea, wrong place.
Yeah.
Like this, don't like this.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to the prior show on the way over to the studio, and Dave King, your fellow city councilman, was being interviewed here, and he was talking about market rate housing needs to be affordable, and that's kind of a conundrum in California today because market rate housing, as soon as you say market rate housing, you are talking $600,000 or more, pretty much almost everywhere in the
much
state.
More. And my take on
Yeah, and
market
more.
rate, I mean, market rate seems like a nice fair term, but,
Yeah.
but it means $1 more than the last thing we built. If you build a market rate, if you rent a market rate apartment, it means you're $1 or whatever more than everything else. It's always the next higher.
Yeah, there's capitalism at its worst.
But we were here to talk about CASA.
Yeah, keep
this
going.
CASA compact.
Oh, well, so the outcome, just to finish up on the know before you grow. So what the developer heard was people were saying you really need to have higher density than this 22 units of single family dwellings per acre.
Right.
And do you think he's receptive to that?
Well, I mean, it was loud and clear input, and that's the fun of having these meetings is you get real interaction with real developers.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see.
So, okay, good. Thanks, Kevin. Go on, please.
Well, on the CASA Compact, this really important regional address of it, the city council, all the city council takes it very seriously, the affordable housing issue, really seriously. And so we're having a workshop on Monday, and if you check the city web pages, you find this is coming up. And we'll have the experts in talking about it. I'm by no means any sort of expert. I've read a little bit, but Monday night,
so this coming Monday.
This coming
what
Monday.
Time and where?
It's at 6 o'clock at City Hall, the council chambers.
6 o'clock, City Hall. Okay.
And we'll get a real good presentation from the experts on this. One of whom is David Rabid, and
our supervisor,
county supervisor, and also Jake McKenzie, who's city council from Roner Park.
Long time proponent of affordable housing.
And they're a part of the core group in this regional government of Metropolitan Transportation and ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Government, who have pulled this together to try and address something. And I think since we haven't done as well as we desire to do or need to do, it's really nice to have a fresh air, fresh ideas, and a sense, well, there's a target. Let's tweak this idea forward, backwards, whatever. But at least we got an idea of a better plan. There's concerns. The next point we were hitting down was like they're number 7 on the top 10.
Okay.
And it's expedited approvals. This is where people will get out of their chairs a little bit.
Yeah, this is where some people get real heartburn.
It waives certain aspects of CEQA.
Yeah, CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act.
We're hitting all the acronyms today,
right.
aren't we? Yeah, but for 30 years, CEQA has been a great protector.
Yes,
of
the environment,
and the whole built environment, what people live with, as well as what they do to the fish and the flowers. It's also our transportation is rolled up into CEQA and all the other aspects. So that's where I expect to see a lot of hard questions come towards these experts. But they also talk about unlocking public lands. That's one of the goods. The cities all own properties that are not using. Well, if the problem is cost, and the city can put in lands to the project,
which is a huge portion of the cost of a housing unit.
Right. So there's real opportunities in that area. But when you get down to the bottom, all these great ideas, they're going to cost some money.
Yeah.
So elements 9 and 10, the last two, are their funding sources. And so they talk about a tax and things. So none of this will get sorted locally.
Well, what are those last couple, just out of curiosity?
Well, they throw a big number like $2.5 billion worth of needs here.
To build the housing that is needed.
Right, to fulfill all the elements above, including...
And that would be for the San Francisco Bay Area.
9 Bay Area counties.
Okay.
And we're the furthest north, but it includes the San Jose area and all the way around.
Okay, so you're talking millions and millions of people.
Right.
So how many billions?
2.5.
2.5
and
billion.
whether that turns out to be a quarter-cent tax or something different, they're not certain yet. But certainly they have to fund all the good ideas that are in the other elements. And already some of this stuff is starting to be formulated as state bills in the assembly.
Right.
So, this is a big train moving, but I think there's still a lot of room to get the public education done.
Yeah.
And to
get some input.
Get the input.
Yeah.
And craft things so that we get at least some sort of a consensus on it. It's not going to be unanimous, but if we can get
start working towards a common goal.
I mean, we're failing now.
Yeah.
We need a new idea.
One of the big differences between when I was on the city council, those 20 years ago or what it was, we had redevelopment districts, and redevelopment districts by law said that, you declare an area redevelopment district. people are paying property tax in there already. You would start to improve things. The property taxes go up. That increase in property tax gets to be returned to the city. And a portion of that was dedicated to affordable housing. Now, when I was on the council, we had Bonnie Gabler as our housing director, and she was great at taking those monies, putting them together with in lieu fees where developers didn't want to include, affordable housing units in their project, and find other grant sources. And Petaluma was amongst the top 3 in the state for per capita affordable housing units. Now, Jerry Brown, when he was governor, saw that there was a lot of abuse in certain, typically often more wealthy communities, where they declared, they wanted a new golf course, so they declared an area blight and said, we're going to do redevelopment. So, you had that kind of example. But cities like Petaluma were putting it to really good use. Now, he did this during the downturn, the 2008 economic downturn, when the state was desperate for money. So he captured those tax monies. Now, I know there's some discussion in the legislature in Sacramento about reinstituting maybe not redevelopment districts, but other kind of assessment districts or something. Well, is that part of the discussion in the CASA compact, do you know?
Yeah, I think the CASA bit off a huge, ambitious agenda, and those 10 points that they're trying to hit on and message on, but then they have the supplemental points that didn't quite make top 10.
Okay.
And the first of those is redevelopment 2.0.
Okay.
And they're trying to push on that because, it generated a local stream for local good projects.
Yeah.
And we need local streams. It's funny, one of the unintentional consequence kind of things that happens, we used to have money for housing from when developers built and didn't build inclusionary housing.
Yeah.
It could go to the in lieu
That's
pot
the
of
in lieu
cash,
fees, yeah.
and the city could multiply that with other outside sources and whatnot. Well, now the city has an inclusionary policy on new development.
Yeah.
Means you build that affordable house in your development.
Where you have to build
You have to build it in. And I think that's a great idea.
I do too.
It really happens. But now the problem is there's no in lieu fee at the city.
Yeah.
So all that multiplier and abilities for the city to focus money on a project they want to see go forward, that kind of goes away.
Yeah, you don't have the money to match grants from the state or the federal government or something. That's right, yeah. Well, and the interesting thing was, even when we did have that stream from redevelopment, there was still, 15, 20 years ago, a desperate need for more affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So even though Petaluma had this, great ranking, if you would, in terms of how, per capita units, it still was not addressing the whole need by a long shot. So that kind of, folks, listeners, that kind of gives you a sense of the proportion of the problem here.
And it's true, I think, across the region. I mean, I was in Ukiah traveling north recently and visiting with friends, and they're saying it's not affordable in Ukiah. People are moving out. And I think it's the same message you hear in Petaluma. But I'm trying to figure out where they're moving to, because to us, Ukiah looks awesome.
Well, I can tell you just anecdotally, a friend of mine, I've known pretty much my whole life. He and his wife moved from Los Angeles to Eugene. They got a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house on a third of an acre, beautiful yard, gardens, nice looking house for like $300,000. Now that's really affordable to us here. But, I mean, what's the economic base in Eugene? Can you have a job that pays for that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's some Oregonian that's cussing some California right now.
Yeah, don't Californicate Oregon, they say.
Yeah, but, I mean, so many things are related that we have to connect all the dots all the time. Part of the reason that we're in this housing problem is for every 7 jobs we created, new jobs,
one housing unit.
Yeah. And what do we look for in a community? We have to improve our economic base. We need to get jobs.
Yeah.
When we're reasonably successful at that. And we should pat ourselves on the back and say we're doing good there, but we're not in balance.
Now we have to focus on the housing
and
side.
We really need to change our focus and make sure we get our housing, because if those people, 7 new employees, all drive into town, building Rainier is not going to solve that.
Yeah.
The amount of traffic that brings in, fixing the freeway, will be undone if we don't do housing policy.
Yeah,
I mean,
but once again, as you say,
everything.
This is where good design comes in, so that people can, either live near transit or work near where they live.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a bit of infill going on that's going to help a little bit.
Yeah.
ADUs and apartment and things like that.
ADUs are accessory dwelling units.
We-
See, look, he's only been on the city council a few months, and he's slinging the jargon. Come on, Kevin, tell him what it is.
What do we say with it? Those are TLAs and FLAs. They're 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms. TLAs.
Oh, good to know there's an acronym for an acronym. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, one of the things I'm pleased to see, that they do have, and at the top, that they are talking about rent control and renter protections, because, you always hear, and this just happened in Healdsburg, you always hear, oh, well, you're going to disincentivize people from building if you have rent control. Well, guess what? They're not being built now, and there's no rent control to speak of, here in the greater Bay Area. And so, but renters are being screwed. They're being exploited. I know, got a friend who's paying $22.30 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment over there in the Enclave, over there off of Lakeville and in Casa Grande, and it's not much to speak of. And he's also they're charging him something like $80 a month for trash and water and sewer. Plus he's got his PG&E bill. So, guys, he's making $16 an hour. It's not going to be sustainable. And this is why we have a huge homeless problem. That's, another freight train coming down the track, because when you got corporate landlords like that are being unregulated, you do end up with exploitation and homelessness and a lack of, affordable housing. So but now
these are all connected, and I'm really glad you're.
And this is a hot topic.
Yeah, and I think the city council's doing a good thing by having a workshop and getting the people involved and trying to explain the mystery of all those levers that happen in government that you don't see. It's important to get it out in the public. And as you mentioned, $16 an hour, and there's a movement for $15 an hour.
Yeah, as a living wage, which isn't really.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not living wage.
No,
it's nowhere close to.
Well, some people call $15 an hour a living wage in other parts of the country.
Yes, in Oregon, where your friend.
Yeah.
But they want to get the minimum wage to 15, and there'll be a workshop that the council has on that. And I think it's really important that people show up on both sides to hear the other side's perspective, and also to advocate their own perspective. It's true in this housing part. You need to see it coming. You don't want to be looking at your city's policies and saying, "Oh, I never knew they were involved."
Right.
I'm hoping we get more citizen participation, a higher level of engagement.
Well, let's hope that on Monday that a lot of the folks that went to the Know Before You Grow are going. And again, folks, that's this coming Monday, 6:00 at the City Council chambers. They're going to be talking about the CASA Compact, and it's going to cover everything from rent control to CEQA review. And CEQA review, I mean, there's a whole huge topic on itself, because of course CEQA has, as you've inferred, prevented many, many bad, destructive projects from going forward. And it has been one of the few tools available to the general public, right? And I know that, I myself was opposed to the Factory Outlet Mall being built in a floodplain, and it's, away from downtown. And I think time has shown that those of us who said that was a bad place to put it have been proven right, because it's not this crashing success, and they've never expanded, and et cetera. But the fact of the matter is that, developers have honed their skills and their tools to get through CEQA or get around CEQA, and still, destructive things are done and bad projects get built. So, how do you find the balance between protecting the environment and, then just making everything low density, high traffic development?
Right. I think, a lot of that comes out of the general planning that the city does, and specific planning, the tools that the planning department, the operating instructions for the planning department, and getting that out in front of the public and saying, so our intention is this. Is the public behind this? Do we want this direction? And
generally what you have is a general plan that says, here's the community's vision. Then you have to have zoning that follows on, that is designed to implement that. And then you have to have a city council that's committed to not overriding the general plan or the zoning in special circumstances.
Right.
Which is a way a lot of bad developments, and I'm just going to say the Target project is one, where that's how that happens, instead of a mixed-use project. And David Rabbit was on the city council. I think he's not a bad supervisor, but on the city council, he was the one that encouraged that the housing element in that target project be eliminated. Of course, the developers had lined it up along the freeway where it would be easy to eliminate instead of the other side of the property. But now we need housing.
Yeah.
And that's, it's like a lack of vision in that one.
Yeah, times change and people change, and it's real tricky to get it all right. The general plan that's set for 20 years is too long a planning window anymore. I mean, we need to be more nimble and revisit it.
20 minutes?
But I mean, we should be able to see some things coming. We should recognize that housing is more of a problem. But, there's the things we're doing today, we have to predict what's going to happen over the next 50 years, but we shouldn't be basing it on what happened over the past 50 years. Our dependency on cars and designing general plans with car-based. Well, ride-share autonomous, in 50 years, what's our world going to look like?
Right.
We're going to have a different society by then.
Yeah, well, which raises the specter of the Safeway gas station, right?
Oh, that is a specter, yeah.
Because, of course, they have 16 gas pumps and one electric charging station.
Right.
And I think that the internal combustion engine is going the way of the dinosaur, and not too soon.
Not soon enough.
Not soon enough. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a petition rolling around town on climate change, and if you see it, read it and figure out. I mean, people have a strong interest in changing the contributing factors to our climate change, but making all electric houses, taking them off in the natural gas system. Yeah. But all that carbon burn, there's a much better way to do this. And, I mean, granted, we have to act nationally as well as locally, but the thing you do personally is the first and bestest thing you can do.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, the new Green Deal is talking about things just like that, and the idea that we need to stop burning natural gas because natural gas, which heretofore everybody thought was much cleaner and is much cleaner than burning coal, is still producing carbon pollution. Whereas if you have all things operating electrically and you have solar panels and wind turbines and hydropower to power the electricity, that's a much cleaner footprint.
Yeah.
But think about my house. I've got a gas stove, a gas heater, and a gas water heater, and so would I love it to all be carbon neutral and clean? Absolutely. But that's a pretty big, and it's going to, and you think about the millions of homes across the country, that's a big, big job.
And that's why they call it New Deal.
Yeah.
It's a big, ambitious plan to change the world.
Yeah, it is. Although, there was a gathering that the Pachamama Alliance had.
Yep, that was a good one.
It was cold as hell in that bank building.
But that's a nice, put a plug in for that venue.
Yeah, because, the venue was great. I mean, it's a nice gathering place, although it was freezing that night. But the idea behind that was an introduction to Drawdown. Drawdown is a book that's been edited by Paul Hawken. And Drawdown talks about the 100 most effective things you can do to combat global warming. And the interesting thing is that the very number one is refrigerant management, because the chemicals used in refrigeration are so much more destructive and so much more polluting and contribute so much more to global warming that refrigerators that get sent to the dump and stripped for parts but are not properly having their Freon type gas or their refrigerant captured go into the environment. And that is, they say, the biggest thing right now that could improve the protecting the environment.
But it's that kind of personal awareness and being woke is so important to step in to taking actions rather than assuming it's going to happen by its own nature or some regulatory thing will happen. It's time for personal action.
It's true, and that's where you get an electric car, you get an on-demand water heater or an electric water heater. There are refrigerators that you can get that don't have those kind of polluting refrigerants.
And you show up and support local housing. You support local improvements so people can live and work in the same towns.
Exactly.
It's all related. When a local employer can't find a worker at an entry level wage, because they have to drive.
They can't afford
20,
to live
30
here.
They can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to hurt our business community. So we need to have that. We need to support the actions when climate change champions come around and there's initiatives. Take a minute to support them. Maybe you already took one personal action, but take an action to support the champions for the greater good.
And I'm going to stick in a plug here for my friend Ray Cooper. Yeah, he's got a program on PCA here, KPCAI. Ray is a vegan, and he talks about how much a plant-based diet saves, 10 or 100 times the water and the resources than a meat-based diet, which is true. And there are many ways to approach this problem, many ways to chip away at it, but that's a good one. And and Ray, if you listen to his program, he can give you the details, but it's quite effective as a personal thing that you can do. In the meantime, there are around here, you can get, a plug-in hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle. You can get solar on your house. There are many things you can do. And it's kind of, I always like to think back when I get too depressed about all this stuff. I like to think back to, cigarettes, how people used to smoke cigarettes in restaurants,
Right. See them everywhere.
blow the smoke in your face. And that's gone because enough people stopped it and fought it. Or curbside recycling. Now, recycling is, a tricky thing because China has stopped taking our, single-use plastic trash, which means that we need to start eliminating that. But it's started out with hippies crushing their beer cans and taking them to a collective center and selling the metal to a recycler. And today we've got a whole organized system that serves the public, and it's the same kind of thing that you're talking about.
A lot of people have a certain hesitancy to leap when you're talking about changing a technology and whatnot. You asked me about how the council's going, but if you ask my other hobbies too, one of them is I've been reached out to the climate change organization, Ann Hancock and the gang up there.
Yeah.
Real great group. And said,
what's their name now? They changed it a couple years ago.
But the gist is, I asked who's mentoring in the electric car world, who's offering a class to say you really can do it. Don't worry, you're not going to run out of electricity.
Yeah.
And so I've met a really interesting professor who is on their staff. He's also from CSU East Bay, and we're putting together a little training opportunity, a little PowerPoint where you can say, if you drive this far, you reduce your oil consumption this much, but better than that, it defrays your cost of owning the vehicle by this much. And if you drive 50 miles a day, your car pays for itself.
If you get an electric car.
If you get an electric car.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and in addition to doing the right thing, the environmentally right thing, it's economically it's
serving
good on that green too.
Yeah, serving your finances.
But people have a hesitancy to leap, and they say, it'll cost me money or on things. Well, it doesn't have to, and don't be afraid of the leap. Talk to people who are already making the leap. I mean, only 1% of the cars in the United States are electric cars currently.
Yeah.
And
although in California, they were 12% of the car sales last year, either electric or electric plug-in hybrid, which is pretty significant.
Right. Yeah. So
but that's good, Kevin. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think that we're so fortunate and blessed to live in this area, but sometimes I think we're also just so comfortable that it's easy to be distracted from these realities that are coming down the pike really fast. Now, we just went through this massive flooding of the river, and we just went through the massive fires in the last 2 years. So the message is being brought home to us closer and closer to our doorstep. Many people whose homes were wiped out, the message came all the way to them.
Absolutely.
But, we have to remember not to just be constantly distracted by all the fun and cool stuff around here that we're the beneficiaries of, but to pay attention like you are to these particular issues and to start addressing them.
Yeah, and I think we're deep in an area of a concern for these issues, but what will actually create a change is becoming committed to resolving these issues, either housing or climate. And that's, we need people to jump onto the housing bandwagon and say, look, we're failing. We are not providing affordable. Our kids aren't living here anymore. Our workforce isn't living here anymore. It's affecting the whole feel of town, and people say, I like Petaluma because it's this.
Yeah.
It's not just the cool buildings.
Yeah.
And it's not just the cool shops. It's the cool people. And we don't want to lose that demographic mix that makes Petaluma fun.
That's right. That's right. Well, and talking about commitment, it's your adage about the pig and the chicken.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners.
Well, that distinction's clear when the pig and the chicken are looking in the farmer's window at his breakfast, and there's bacon and eggs, and the chicken says, I'm very concerned he's eating an egg, and the pig said, hey, but when he eats the bacon, that's my brother. I'm kind of committed on this. It's a much deeper level of commitment.
Yeah, and our bacon's getting eaten these days.
That's really true. So again, Monday night, if you can get out and get to the council chambers and
check this out.
Check this out.
So that's going to be a wealth of information, just like the Know Before You Grow, which I was sorry to miss.
And the Know Before You Grow is another little plug. We'll have almost monthly events this year. They're really mobilized and got a good crew of people engaged in that. And so stay tuned for announcements on that. They'll have other developments grilled. I think we're going to try and grill them. And then there's a group called Yes in My Backyard.
Oh, yeah, YIMBY.
YIMBY, as opposed to all the Not in My Backyard, NIMBY.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping to get a little heat under that conversation and make the dialogue go back and forth.
Good for you.
Yeah. And there's just a lot going on. And,
well, there's no moss growing under you, Kevin. Hey, listen, I mentioned the gas station and Safeway before real briefly, and I know that the council is still deliberating.
That's true.
But would you just explain to our listeners briefly what the big hang-up here is? Because I get the sense that the council really doesn't want to approve this project, and there's a lot of opposition to it that's been well organized and outspoken. And I understand that there are some recent legal court cases that may be hamstringing the council. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, it's a pretty good start on the conversation there. Last week we had a public hearing on the appeal. So the citizens, Safeway was issued a permit from the planning group, citizen group appealed it, and so it's now at the council level. And they had a public hearing, and people came and spoke about all the different concerns they have, and quite passionately, actually, on perhaps both sides. And and the project proponent spoke, and the appellant's lawyers spoke as well. And after the Planning Commission hearing last year, after the council first sorted this out in December, court cases have been dropped in since then. And they say you do or you don't have jurisdiction as a council over development that's already permitted and already a known project and property.
And gone through an initial review?
Yeah.
I mean, you can always appeal a planning commission approval to the city council.
Right, but it's what they're saying is that what Safeway's case is that the jurisdiction of the council doesn't extend to CEQA elements off property. And the Safeway's counsel was explaining that. And
so that would be like if they have fumes escaping and blowing to the school across the street, that the jurisdiction does not allow the council to address that?
Right. They say that when you have an approved use on a project, you're only approving the aesthetic conditions of it. So how it will work on that property, not off that property, since it's an approved use on. And other court cases have come down. So right now the council is trying to wade through each of the court cases.
Yeah, because I think the opponent said there was another court case that says a council would have that jurisdiction.
Right. So the council has to make sure that they're making a legally defensible stand on any action. You don't want to get out too far over the front of the skis and just get shot down quickly by you have to make a well-reasoned and legal.
Yeah, you don't want to go into a lawsuit knowing you got a 99% chance of losing.
Right. There's no sense in that. So new data keeps coming up, new court keeps coming up, and the council's trying to get the right thing done.
Okay, and I will add to let our listeners know, Kevin, that when I was on the city council, I know that a city, if it enters into a certain number or types of lawsuits, if it wins, it is not allowed to recoup its legal costs, whereas the reverse is not true. So if a person or a company sues the city and they win, the city has to pay their legal costs. But if the city wins, the loser does not have to pay the city's costs because the city's a public agency and the courts look at that differently. And so that puts the city at a distinct disadvantage if somebody is threatening a lawsuit. It gives that person leverage over the city. So I just want my listeners to know that.
I mean, that's an interesting point, but I do want you to know that the city council doesn't vote on the basis of whether it's going to.
No,
it has the citizens' concerns absolutely at the heart of things.
Yeah, it's just that people should know that that's the real world. The
risk involved.
Exactly, one of the things that you as a council have to put up with. So, okay, so good luck on that, Kevin. So we're getting towards the top of the hour. I do have one thing I want to mention in a minute, but just to finish up on the CASA, the housing issue. So there's a meeting this Monday at City Council at 6:00 to talk about this topic. What's the next step in this? Because this is a regional effort to try to generate more housing throughout the area. What's the next step for the CASA Compact?
Well, locally after this, we'll be asked to support actions going through. And most of the action is going to be state legislation that goes through either funding or rent control issues. But
that would be legislation that would be consistent with this CASA program, presumably.
Yes, but I wouldn't doubt that someone comes in and says, well, let's tweak it a little to the left here. So we'll have to stay on top of what our interests are and what our community believes is the right outcomes. And, over the next couple months, we'll see every city council or county government weigh in on this.
Has MTC and ABAG asked all the councils and supervisors and stuff to review this and either give their input or say they support it or don't?
Yeah, actually, the MTC is forming an input commission, another group. They're going to form another committee. And I'm thinking about trying to get on and be Petaluma's representative into that continuing.
And would that be
process.
To try to implement the CASA Compact as it is now?
No, it would be to implement it as we wish it to be implemented. Because Petaluma is probably not going to adopt it full stop, no issues.
Okay.
We're going to put our little wrinkle, as does every city.
Yeah.
And as CASA wishes you to do. CASA's looking for that feedback. So what they wrote today is probably not the final outcome.
But so they're saying here's a model that you could adopt or modify it to your own needs.
I don't think we'll be adopting things locally. I think what will happen is there'll be regional or state programs developed that will be mandated. Did you follow Gavin Newsom's little threat?
Yeah.
I mean,
he what was it? Huntington Beach. So this is an ongoing scam. So in the development world, you have a general plan. It predicts how many jobs and houses that are going to come, with your future development. And the state says, well, if you're going to have that many people, that many jobs, you have to provide X number of housing units. And then, the cities and counties are supposed to obey that, but there's very little, if any, enforcement of that. And in rich communities like Huntington and Marin County say, oh, well, we give ourselves a waiver, or we're calling this housing project affordable, and it's not really. So Gavin Newsom has said, you know what, you want more state road money, you better fulfill your obligation.
He took Huntington Beach straight on with a lawsuit. But he's also just generally thrown on the table that if you want transportation funds, perhaps we're going to link that to success with housing. Now, I don't think he's going to get far with that because the road interests are very strong, too. That's
right. Folks, this is Kevin McDonnell on Two Mooks and a Mic. We've got to wrap it up here. I just want to say that Monday, March 11th, Aqua's Cafe at 6 o'clock is going to be hosting Gail McLaughlin. She's a former Richmond Progressive Alliance City Council member, and she's going to talk about how to get good things done. Go to the Aquas website and check it out. I'm sorry we didn't give it a little bit more time, but folks, thanks for listening. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
All right. Take care, folks.